My kids are really interested in that horseback riding lesson.
Oh, that's.
You know I have them already.
These animals are so.
Yeah, they are.
Ready to roll?
Yeah, I think so.
When I first met
Oh, give me 1 minute. Yeah, I gotta read. You ready or not showing up?
All right, well, thank you for joining us this evening. This is the Town Council meeting for Tuesday, March 7, 2023, right here in our Yucca Valley Community Center room. And we'll go ahead and call this meeting to order.
Councilmember Zabel,
Here?
Droz,
Here.
Lombardo,
Here.
Schooler,
Here.
and Mayor Dennison.
Here. So tonight, I'm going to take the opportunity to lead us in the pledge. I haven't done that in quite some time. But we also have an invocation tonight led by Pastor Casey Coleman of the Calvary Baptist Church. So after the pledge, please remain standing. Follow me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our gracious God and Father, we come before your throne of grace, thanking you for all that you have given to us, all that you give us. As we think of our great nation, Lord, we search its history and see the many ways that you have been merciful to us. And so, Lord, we ask that your grace, your mercy might be bestowed upon us again, that our hearts might be turned back to you so that we might walk in your ways. We do pray for those who are in authority as your word commands us. We pray for our president, our vice president, members in various Congress, Senate, all the way down to this town council. Lord, we pray that you would direct each and every action that is made. May you protect and provide for all families who are represented, and help us, Lord, to be a light in the places that you have put us. Help us to do what your word says in fearing you and keeping your commandments, because this is the whole duty of man. We thank you for law enforcement, first responders, and those who serve behind the scenes and keep us safe. Lord, we do pray for your gracious provisions to be given to them and your protection. Oh Lord, we thank you for this community. And we pray, Father, that you would give wisdom to the decisions that will be made tonight. May a spirit of unity guide us and help us. And Lord, again, we realize, we understand that without you, we can do nothing. So we pray, Father, that you would give us your sustaining grace, and we will thank you for it. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor.
Beautiful.
So tonight, we'll go ahead and move on to our presentations, introductions, and recognitions. We have an introduction tonight of town employee.
I'd like to ask Yolanda Perez to join me up front, please. So it's a pleasure to stand before the council and introduce new team members to the organization. Yolanda came on board as a full-time town employee about 3 weeks ago, approximately. Administrative Assistant 2 in code compliance. And while she is designated in code compliance, she helps out in many other areas, from the front counter to helping building and safety, helping the planning staff. With a small organization, people have to be able to work across those different division lines. Even though she is officially a town employee about 3 weeks ago, she's actually been with us for about a year. Started out in March of '22. from a temp agency when Mary Anderson had left and retired to Tennessee. Remember when Mary left? And we finally were able to move around, recruit for the position, fill the position, and Yolanda was selected as the person. So it's with great pleasure to introduce to the council and the community this evening Yolanda and welcome her on board.
I'd like to thank the town for allowing me to join the team. It's been a great pleasure to work with the Community Development Department, and I just would like to express my gratitude and thank you.
Well, welcome, Yolanda. Right, if there's nothing else on that, then I'll be looking for approval of the agenda.
I'll move we approve.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Council members Abel,
Yes.
Droz, Lombardo,
Yes.
Schooler,
Yes.
and Mayor Dennison.
Yes. I will move on to our consent agenda. All items listed on the consent agenda are routine matters or formal documents covering previous town council instruction. Items are enacted in one motion and a second without separate discussion unless a member of the town council or town staff requests dialogue on a specific item at the beginning of the meeting. Requests for public comment on the consent agenda items should be filed with the town clerk. Is there anyone in the public that would like to make a comment or talk about anything on the consent agenda? Seeing none, anyone online? Nothing? Bringing it back to council? Any comments on consent?
I move we approve the consent.
Okay, we have a move, a second? I'll second.
Council members Abel,
Yes.
Droz,
Yes.
Lombardo,
Yes.
Schooler,
Yes.
and Mayor Dennison.
Yes. Well, we're moving right along tonight. So we're going to get on to our department reports now, and this one is fast approaching. Our 2023 Grubstake Days celebration update, and this is item 6 on the agenda.
Yes, Mayor Dennison and Town Council, this is the update on the 2023 Grubstake Days celebration. As you know, the Yucca Valley Chamber of Commerce Grubstakes Days celebration dates back over 60 years in the basin. In the past, the event would often include a parade, carnival, rodeo, demolition derby. Town, of course, hosted the Grubstakes Run. The event evolved, and starting in 2015, the chamber began to focus their efforts on the actual parade. The town continued to support the event through parade funding and youth commission and float participation, the Grubstakes Run event, and marketing support. In 2016, a new group, Bring Back Grubstake Days Committee, began to reintroduce the traditional Grubstake Days events, such as the Carnival, Horseshoe Tournament, Tug of War, Kids Day, and other such events. The town does fund the Chamber of Commerce in a partnership agreement for this event in the amount of $5,000. And the Chamber is moving forward with the presentation of a 2023 Grubstake Days events. Chamber of Commerce Director Wanda Statham is present and will provide event details in a moment. In addition, we wanted to discuss a little bit the rodeo. As you know, the rodeo was last held at Hawks Landing pre-COVID in 2019. Prior to that, it was held in Homestead Valley in Landers. It was well attended with a total attendance estimated at 2,200. However, the National Police Rodeo Association has since dissolved. Rodeo organizers have not approached the town regarding an event in 2023, and support funding would be needed to be front-loaded with offsets, if any, occurring after the event, and the estimated budget for such an event is in the range of $65,000 to $70,000. Unfortunately, there's currently no organizations that can or are willing to fund that budget at this time. However, the Town of Yucca Valley Grubstakes Run will continue. It will host its annual Grubstakes 10K, 5K, and 2K event. It's popular with local athletes and will continue in 2023 and is currently scheduled for Sunday, May 28th at 8 a.m. And at this time, I'd like to invite Wanda Statham to share the chamber plans with the town council. Welcome, Wanda.
Excellent. Thank you, staff, and thank you, Wanda, for being here this evening.
Thank you, Mayor Dennison, and thank you, Sandy. I called you Sandy. Thank you, Susan. Wanda Statham, President, CEO of the Yucca Valley Chamber of Commerce, and I'm just real happy to be here today to thank all of you for the town partnering funds for specific economic development activities. We get a nice proportion for our budget for the year to market locally, shop, work, live, eat, and play here in Yucca Valley, the campaign. And we also, as Sue mentioned, we get $5,000 in Grub Day support, which we couldn't do without. And I want to thank the council and the town manager for approving the front money for the Grub Steak Day support so that we could buy all the things that we need to make Grub Steak Days really work well. That check came last week in the mail. Thank you so much. Now, I gave you all a flyer, a little flyer, and this little flyer is like the big poster, and it says down here that there's some more things coming. By April 1st, we'll have everything finalized. Actually, by Monday, I hope next week we'll have Monday the 20th, we'll have things finalized. We're looking at a pancake breakfast that hasn't been finalized with the fire department. They're very, very excited about doing something like that. We have a horseshoes and beard contest that's also still in the works, and so that will be finalized hopefully. But we have our kickoff mixer coming on the 25th, and that's going to be a really great event. The Joshua Tree National Park Association headquarters in Old Town is going to sponsor that mixer, and it was a lot of fun when they had a mixer last summer, and so I know they're going to do a wonderful job this year for us and have a lovely mixer. Also, the parade is a really exciting event that's going to come again, and this year's Grub Steak Grand Marshal is the Morongo Basin Historical Society. And they are just totally dancing on their tiptoes. They're so happy. They're going to enter 3 or 4 moving vehicles. They're already planning who's going to ride on them and what they're going to look like, and they're going to lead the parade. So the theme is called Old Timers. And so we don't want the parade to just be full of old timers. We just want to make sure that you invite the businesses that you know that have been here a long time, the clubs, the organizations, and all the friends that have been here a while to participate in the parade and get their face out there on the street and get some good publicity for everyone. I think it'll be really neat. And that's all I really have on the Grub Steak Days event. Would you like me to quickly tell you what's happening at the chamber?
Oh, yes, please.
Thank you. I would love to. We have had more phone, text, and email activity since the end of the COVID shutdown than we've ever had in the 9 years I've been a chamber CEO. People call in requesting all kinds of information, local as well as out of our area, mostly local, more than out of the area. We've sent out, just in this since January, 12 relocation packages, which are people that have called and asked for information on our area, and that has come from places like Bullhead City Chamber of Commerce wanted us to send them a big package of all of the things that we're doing here in Yucca Valley. We've sent 2 to them so far. Missouri, Texas, and San Francisco are just a few of some of the calls that we've had come in to request information about what's going on up here in our area. We've taken in 17 new chamber members since the beginning of our fiscal year in 2022 to 2023. Just last month, we took in 9 of those new members, which is totally a record for us. Our membership count stands at 270 members in good standing. We did have 30-plus members. I say 30-plus because it's going to be a few more as the rest of this fiscal year gets billed until June. 30 members went inactive. So our membership was up to 310 prior to COVID, and then we did a little bit of adjustments. Most people, they sold their business and retired. They moved to be with the family, or else COVID completely just destroyed their business without any chance of recovery. We're still keeping in touch with all those members and making sure that if they get into another area of retail or some kind of business, that they consider coming back and joining in again. Also, you need to stop by our office anytime. We've remodeled the interior space of our chamber office because we have a new admin assistant. Judy Moore has been working with me for the last 4 months on an on-the-job training program from the San Bernardino County Workforce Development. She's been on board since November 7th, and she's handling membership and marketing. And I would love to bring her to our next appearance for Grub Steak Days and introduce her to all of you. We also have a new chamber board member. Jennifer Collins, a past board member, retired and is moving to Coeur d'Alene, Utah? Coeur d'Alene, Utah? Is that Utah? Idaho, Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, yes. And so there was a spot open, and Matt Buros, whom you all are familiar with, Yucca Valley Film Festival and Colorado Studios, has been on board a month as our new chamber director. He has planned to make Yucca Valley his permanent home. After traveling around the country the last 2 years, setting up other film festivals across the United States, he realized that this place is really a wonderful place to be. And he and his wife, Oregon, are buying a home, and they are going to base here in California. He also just recently was hired by the California Welcome Center as their operations manager. So that's another big step for Matt. So we're excited about that for him. And the last but not least, I gave you a little mixer and Leeds lunch sign-up sheet, or people who signed up. Put this in your calendar. We'd love to see you at one of our mixers or one of our lunches. It's a good way to network with what's going on out there in the community. Thank you very much. Are there any questions from the council?
Any questions for one?
You'll have to speak up.
Is there a membership for the chamber that is not business? Like if you retire or had a business and you sell it, is there just a interested member?
Yes, there is an individual membership that's available through the Chamber of Commerce. We do have tiered rates, and we do have several. We have nonprofit rate, single individual member rate, which doesn't do business, or is some kind of a business that's not active. There may be a broker on their own, or some kind of an agent for someone, and we want to get another category for specifically for real estate, because we're finding all these real estate agents are coming from all over California and selling property and businesses here in our town. So that's kind of a nice thing that's happening as well. Anything else? Thank you very much, and I'll see you.
Wanda.
Thank you. I'll see you next month.
Absolutely, look forward to it.
We love your energy.
That concludes the staff report. We'd be happy to answer any questions after public comment.
All right, anyone in the audience or online interested in wanting to make any comments, follow-up for this item, number 7? No? All right, correction, number 6. All right, we'll go ahead and move on then to item number 7. That's a First Amendment contract with Trepepe Smith for SB 1383 marketing.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and Council. This evening, the item before you is an amendment to a contract with Trepepe Smith for SB 1383 marketing. But before I get into the staff report, I wanted to take this time to provide you with a brief update on SB 1383 and what the town is doing for compliance. As a brief recap, the state mandates that all cities and counties are to implement organics recycling by providing organic waste collection services under SB 1383. And some of the required components of the bill include residential and commercial organics, edible food recovery programs, education and outreach, extensive record keeping, monitoring, and also enforcement. The town submitted an NOIC, which is a notice of intent to comply, to Cal Recycle last year, February of 2022. And our original plan was to implement our organics recycling programs in the town in July of 2023, so this July. However, our franchise hauler, Burtec, has had some setbacks due to a truck shortage based on supply chain issues, which is actually affecting the entire state. So this has pushed our implementation plan forward to most likely January of 2024. We have submitted a revised NOIC to Cal Recycle, and they are working with the town on the new dates through a corrective action plan. So the town has been putting together the programs and all of the other things, putting those into place with regards to SB 1383. And also a component of that is the rates. As the council knows, we've been talking about this for a while, that the rates are going to have to increase because of the organics collections, a whole nother collection component that will be being done. So the town and Burtech have worked really hard to keep our rates over the last few years very low. We've had no increase this year. We've had very minimal increases over the previous 2 years. So knowing that the rate increases for organics would have a significant impact. So in order for the town to comply with the mandatory state requirements under SB 1383, a new rate schedule is being discussed, and with our initial review, the rate increase is most likely going to be in the range of about 50% increase over the next 2 years. So as we complete our rate analysis, we will bring more information to the council with not only the rates, but also when we get more specifics as to the actual implementation dates for our organics programs. So as a part of the town's continued compliance efforts for SB 1383, that brings me back to the staff report tonight, which is an amendment to a contract that we have in place with Trepepe Smith to help us with our education and outreach component, which is a requirement of SB 1383. So the recommended action before you is to approve the First Amendment to the contract with Trepepe Smith to continue assisting the town with SB 1383 public education, outreach, and marketing, and authorize the town manager to sign all related documents in a form approved by the town attorney and make any non-substantive changes. And basically, what the staff report talks about and what the amendment changes, it just increases the term to a period of 15 months with Trepepe Smith, ending on June 30th, 2024, and also increasing the contract amount from $25,000 to $40,000, but $30,000 of that will be offset by the Cal Recycle grant that we received last year. So $30,304 of that $40,000 will be offset by those grant funds. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions following public comment.
Mayor, if I might just add a couple comments. Thank you for that, Jessica. You know, it's important, and the reason that we want to continue with the agreement with Trepepe Smith is to ensure that the public knows with full transparency what our objectives are, which essentially is meeting our obligations under SB 1383. So this state-mandated program that encourages and ultimately mandates that cities across the state enter into organics processing from each individual residence as well as businesses. And so that's a whole different process than what has traditionally been done with solid waste and recycling. And as you can imagine, it's a whole different cost structure as well to implement that program. So we understand the impacts that this is going to have on this community. We're committed to transparency, to education, to information, and ultimately to compliance with state law. And so that is the objective with Trepepe Smith, to help us get that message out to the public so that they are aware of timing, of impacts, and ultimately how they can comply through the town's program. So thank you. With that, we'd be happy to answer other questions.
Thank you very much for that update. Is there anyone in the public who'd like to make any comments on item number 7 as we spoke about? Online, nothing. Seeing nothing. Bring it back to council. I would just like to ask staff, Jessica, are there any cities in the state currently that are doing the organic recycling?
Oh, yeah.
And their increase in their services for a resident, does that seem to also reflect what you're discussing now about 50% increase over their current rates?
Yeah, they are. It's happening across the board, and There are cities that have implemented their organics programs already because they already may have had in place commercial organics, which was actually a requirement back in 2016. However, the town, we didn't have an infrastructure available, which is why we still are having an issue with our organics now that it's required by everybody, not just us, but the county and 29 Palms and the whole Morongo Basin. It makes it a little more feasible to get the organics infrastructure up here. And also, we have a closer composting facility because right now, if we were to take it as of today, it would have to go down to Coachella, which is, I think it's something like 104 round trip miles away. Edom Hill, which is in Cathedral City, is about 65 round trip miles away. So the cost of transportation is a lot less than if we were to try to be taking our organics all the way to Coachella all this time. So yes, all the cities are experiencing significant rate increases due to the fact that they're basically having a third collection every week for the organics.
All right, yeah, well, thank you for the clarification on that, and just so people understand, you'll literally be moving 3 cans out into the roadway today and a third vehicle coming by, and hopefully on the same day that it doesn't become even more complex of those in and out on the cans.
It will be on the same day, definitely, and yes, there will be a third cart given to every resident, and also a third bin given to every business.
All right, well, thank you.
Will we be reviewing other contracts with other communities to see if it's a 50% increase in their, are we going to evaluate our contract and compare it to other communities? Are we getting the proper increase, or are we getting gouged?
We have done rate analysis with other jurisdictions. If you recall, the town is part of also the Mojave Desert and Mountain Recycling JPA, which is the Joint Powers Authority. That includes the cities of Victorville, Adelanto, Big Bear, Apple Valley, Needles, and Barstow as well, and the county of San Bernardino is also included in that JPA. We have all been discussing these rates, and as they've been coming in, and we've been kind of filtering them out, and they've all been around that same 50% mark. We're going to look and see if we can work with Burtec to bring that down as much as we possibly can, because we don't want to, our goal is not to gouge, and their goal is not to gouge the residents, of course, but it is, as Curtis said, it is a third component, and it is going to unfortunately cost, and it is due to the mandate from the state of California.
What the state of California mandates the recycling. However, the state of California doesn't mandate that every person have trash pickup at their home.
Well, they do.
They do, as part of AB 939, there is a component that you are to have trash service at your home, and we, as the town, have also passed an ordinance stating that trash service and recycling service, and then once organics comes into play, will be a mandatory service.
Well, I understand what we did. I was just wondering about the state of California, because I'm sure a lot of people are not compliant in trash service. But again, what we're trying to do as a council by having it across the board, and it's already, like you said, in our bylaws that you're required to have trash service, and there were residents or property owners that weren't at one point, which was causing health and safety issues, and also causing higher rates because the trucks were moving about, but they weren't picking up trash maybe at every particular one. And we were having people illegally dumping into our dumpsters at the small businesses, and they were having to put forth a cost for an extra dump because people were illegally dumping. I just wanted to make sure that, with this program or this outreach, that we reassure our residents that we're negotiating and trying to get the absolute best rate possible, and yet understand the costs have to go up if the state of California throws something on us and doesn't provide our community with funds to offset their mandates. It has to be paid for, and so I just want to make sure our residents are reassured we're doing everything we can to keep those costs, like we have been up to this point, as down as much as possible, because they're getting hammered with utilities, and they're getting hammered with food, and they're getting hammered with gas, and it's just one thing after another, and there's got to be a breaking point where people just can't live in California anymore. So I just want us to do whatever we can to help the residents.
And council member, if I can just remind the council of your efforts following that same guidance, that while we knew 1383 was coming, the council wanted to ensure that the residents were treated equitably, and your adopted current rate schedule had a 0% increase in our current tax bill year for solid waste, even though our CPI number was north of 8%. So that was a commitment by the council, recognizing that in the upcoming years, there's going to be some significant impacts from 1383. And then even in the prior year, in 2021, your increase was about 2.5%. CPI was well north of 5%. So the town has picked up some of that on behalf of our residents, understanding that this change may be coming. But again, this is not the agenda item for actual rate discussion. What we wanted to do is provide you the background for the educational component, why it's so important for us to get that messaging out there. And then as that process moves forward, we'll be back before the council and the community to ensure that there's adequate discussion of that item.
Am I correct in assuming that the waste management fee is added to our property tax roll? It is, right?
Yes.
So all landowners will be participating, which spreads it in a larger area over a larger group of people. So it's a good thing, but it kind of was hard to swallow having it added to the taxes. But I think it'll work out to be a more fair way of doing it.
All right, well, thank you for the discussion on 1383, the mandate from the state. And what we're looking for tonight is approval of an amendment to the contract with Pepe Smith. So I'm looking for a motion.
Mayor, I'll move the item.
All right, and I'll go ahead and second it. Vote, please. Schooler, motion, myself, second.
Councilmember Zabel,
Yes.
Droz,
Yes.
Lombardo,
Yes.
Schooler,
Yes.
and Mayor Dennison.
Yes. Thank you. We're going to move on to item number 8 on the agenda. This is our Measure Y townwide crack ceiling project. Staff?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. The recommendation before you tonight is, number 1, is approving the award of a construction contract with American Asphalt South, Inc. in the amount of $236,542.60 to construct townwide crack seal project, and authorizing construction contingency and inspection cost in the total amount of $294,000, and authorize the mayor, town manager, and town attorney to execute the agreement, and authorize the town manager or designate to expend contingency fund if necessary for the project completion. On January 17, 2023, the town council adopted resolution number 23-1, approving plans, specification, and estimates for the construction of townwide crack seal project, town project number 7037-2023, Measure Y, and authorize the town clerk to advertise and receive bids. The townwide crack seal project is a maintenance effort that is a part of the town's overall pavement maintenance program. Crack sealing is the first step to be implemented prior to the slurry seal of the streets. We received 4 bids for the project. After reviewing the bids, staff determined that American Asphalt South, Inc. of Riverside, California, is the lowest responsible and responsive bidder with a total bid of $236,542.60. The project is set to start in the first half of April 2023 and will be completed by mid-May of 2023. Just wanted to emphasize that this project is financed by Measure Y in a part, so that is a good thing that is we using our fund in the streets. That concludes staff reports. I'll be more than happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Thank you very much for that briefing on this item number 8. Are there any questions in the public for item number 8 on the agenda? Online? Seeing none, bring it back to the council.
Question?
Comments?
How often do we crack seal and slurry seal?
Yearly,
Yearly, every year.
every year.
And Is the amount of road that we do every year, is it similar?
It differ from year to year. We are in a
Have like a
7-year
five-year
programs.
plan, right? So certain roads get done 1 year, and then 5 years, they're done again.
5 to 7 years.
I don't know
Yeah,
exactly what
5
the
to
timing
7 years usually.
Okay. But it's done in chunks that are relatively similar in linear feet?
No, street to street differ in linear foot of how much of crack seal that we're doing. So, this
Oh, I
street
see,
could
'cause
have like,
some of
maybe
them-
1,000 feet, the next street get maybe 200 feet.
All right. Thank you.
No problem.
My understanding, we're still looking at slurry seal type things or cape seal or whatever on other roads at a different time. This is just maintaining those roads that are already paved, don't need a big correction, they just need to be maintained.
That's correct.
All right,
It's a
and I like how I'm seeing it's distributed throughout the community and so forth. Have we done business with American Asphalt before?
I believe that is the town have done work with American Asphalt.
Yeah, and I see that I see their other jobs in other communities they've worked with, so they're very well known. So I'm very confident with this particular company and the bid. You see why you go out to bid, because it makes huge difference when you get back, 40,000 here, 40,000 there. Figure all the projects we do throughout the years, it adds up to some real money. So thank you for the report.
Thank you.
There are no other comments. I'd like to make a motion that we go ahead and approve the item.
All right, we have a motion
I'll second.
and a second.
Councilmember Zabel,
Yes.
Droz,
Yes.
Lombardo,
Yes.
Schooler,
Yes.
and Mayor Dennison.
Yes, thank you.
Thank goodness for Measure Y. We're able to do that, so that's good.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you,
The
Measure
community
Y.
is responsible for this program, so thank you. Next, last item on the agenda, which is item number 9, Planning Division Annual Report and Presentation.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This evening, planning staff are going to provide you with the first ever annual planning report. As the council is aware, you have seen for a number of years building and safety, animal care and control, and public works, but you haven't seen planning, code enforcement, or those others that are part of the organization, so we're starting that process this year. This evening, plannings is going to be a little bit different than what you've seen on others. They're going to talk a little bit about last year. They're going to talk about what's in the pipeline, and they're going to talk a little bit about how your planning staff helps people through the development process. As you know, in California, development is highly regulated at the state level. There's mandates upon us at the local level, and that has an impact upon people who wish to build on their property. And your planning staff has kind of a split role, and that role is to consistently and equitably implement your general plan policies and your development code while helping people through the process, and that is not always easy. So with that, this evening, Jared Jerome on your left-hand side and Evan Willoughby are going to present the annual report to you, and following public comment, we'll be happy to answer questions.
All right, good evening, council. The recommendation for this item is that the town council receive and file the report. So we're going to be talking about a lot of super exciting things. A lot of state laws are going to be said. This is kind of an overview of why we exist in the world. So state law mandates that local agencies, including cities and counties, adopt general plans and establish zoning regulations. State law also requires that each city and county has a planning commission, you're all familiar with. And then the planning division provides support to the commission, recommendations, reports, general information. Our general plan was, the last major update was 2014, and as you might have heard, the housing and safety elements were updated last year in 2022. The development code, which is our guidebook to all of our life at the town of Yucca Valley, was last updated also in the 2014 time period. Revisions as prioritized by the town council, as well as changing conditions and/or new revised state laws are what tweaks those regulations. And then we also are responsible, or try to be responsible, for implementation of the California Environmental Quality Act. If you know any developers, CEQA is their nightmare term, and we're the ones that administer that. So as Shane mentioned, I'm Jared, Associate Planner. This is Evan, our Assistant Planner, and then we have two other staff, Janet, who helps us do everything, and then Patsy, who handles short-term rentals and fills in whenever anyone is sick or goes out on vacation or other leaves of absences. And then we have contract staff, contract services for CEQA, CEQA review. It's a very specialized review process and large-scale, significant large-scale projects. Oops. So our day-to-day services are we answer questions at the front counter, on the phone, and via email. A typical day, me and Evan each field approximately 24 inquiries each. Patsy fields unknown amount of short-term rental inquiries. But some inquiries, as noted on the slide, take upwards of 30, 45 minutes or more, depending on what the project is, to answer as much questions as we can without going into a deeper process. And as you can see, some days, this is our entire day is answering these questions, emails, phone calls. And Evan has prepared a handful of both common and colorful questions that we get. So he's got some examples for you.
So some of those questions that we get either at the front counter or on the phone can include, do you serve Landers or Flamingo Heights? Do you allow glamping? Can we build non-conventional tiny homes, or something such as converting a Boeing 747 to a habitable structure to be used as a single-family residence? Or building a home out of other non-conventional materials such as mirror siding. Another question is building commercial within residential zoning districts, which is usually a no, but we try to guide them into areas where they can build what they're proposing. Also, what is the permitting process for the county like? And other questions from food trucks to farmers markets, change of use, and new ground-up construction.
Thank you, Evan. So we also process land development applications. This could be anything from a single-family home to a new restaurant to some sort of industrial land use. Lately, it's been a lot of restaurants, so there's some new restaurants coming our way, and we'll touch on some of those in a minute. And then also implementing changes to our regulations from either the town council or changes in state laws. What changes have caused the most impact to the planning division priorities? So in 2020, when I started, I was the only person in the planning department, and that radically changed with the spike in both tourism and short-term rentals, wastewater connections, which dramatically increased our native plant and Joshua tree permits for sewer connections. And then the California Endangered Species Act, which will haunt me and Evan's dreams for the rest of our lives. So those activities have necessitated a slight growth in the department to handle the volume of permits we've been seeing. I'm going to let Evan talk about short-term rental permits and Joshua tree permits a bit.
So on short-term vacation rental permitting for calendar year 2022, we took in a total of 412 applications. Of those 412 applications, currently today, there's a little bit of a formatting error, but 398 of those are approved, and there were 99 renewals. In terms of activity levels and how that compares to previous years, when I started in 2021, by the end of that year, we had reached about 227 applications. So that number almost doubled throughout calendar year 2022. In previous years, 2018, 2019, and 2020, that number never broke double digits. So it has been kind of an explosion of activity in that area, and Patsy has definitely helped us process all those applications. In native plant permits, one thing that has affected us has been the Joshua tree. So in order to make sure we're documenting and being transparent about what we're approving and what we're not approving in terms of native plant removals, we've taken in native plant permits on any building permit that requires any level of ground disturbance, whether that's a single-family residence or a sewer line. So some of these numbers illustrate to you the level of activity we've had. In 2022, the total number of native plant permit applications that we took in was about 764. Prior to May 10th, any exempt applications, meaning there were no native plant removals or disturbances being proposed, and they were staying proper clearance from any Joshua trees on the property, those would be approved at our staff level, and there were about 520 of those. After we lost any permitting authority for the Joshua trees and that expired, we took those forward to the commission so they can be received and filed in a transparent manner for the public to view. So those other applications are seen on that right-hand side where you see Planning Commission 2022. Total number of Western Joshua Tree permits in 2022 in terms of agenda items was 134. And for exempt items, that is 169, and non-exempt, meaning that there are native plant removals being proposed, appears to be about 54.
Stay on that slide for just a moment. I'd like to point out, if you look at the meeting schedule, that's your Planning Commission meeting schedule. The commission definitely earned their paychecks in 2022. There was only, in terms of meeting twice a month, there were only 2 months where the commission met one time instead of 2 times. So the commission actually met out of regularly scheduled meetings, including holiday seasons such as Christmas, and those times of year, they met 22 out of 24 times in 2022. So it just kind of shows the impact of both native plants and Western Joshua Tree regulations in the wastewater project, and how that has a trickle-down effect upon not just your staff, but your commissions as well.
All right, so this is kind of an overview of how staff help potential development projects through the review process. So this is kind of our step-by-step process. So first up is a pre-application. That's a process where we will look preliminarily at a proposed project and give preliminary comments to the developer to help kind of walk them through the process and help them understand what's coming their way. We direct people, so the website has all of our applications, links to our code, conditions of approval for people to view, sample conditions of approval, so no one gets blindsided with what they have to go through and what regulations they have to meet, or we try to keep them from being blindsided. Timely processing, we're pretty quick with our applications, especially compared to some other places in the region. We tend to, on the most part, get through applications pretty quick. And then again, CEQA review if a project requires environmental review. So this is our applications page. You'll see in this left-hand column, those are all the various applications, and there will be another slide of even more applications. We have a description of each of these applications and then the regulations that affect those applications. So people can, for example, if you're applying for a conditional use permit, you can go to this chapter 9.63 and see what's required, what the findings are, and you can see sample conditions of approval. So conditions the project proponent will have to meet for that to be constructed. More examples of more permits. Same as the last slide.
So let's go back, let's keep it on that page for just a moment. So what this does in terms of helping people through the process is, instead of looking at a 450-page code binder sitting on the front counter or in the town clerk's office, you can actually find the name of the permit that you're looking at. It references the chapter in the code. It provides a link to that code. You can go directly to that. We also provide, and if you want to use the highlighter on the screen, standard conditions of approval for our major applications. So for commercial development, you're either a site plan review or a conditional use permit, and there are many, many conditions of approval that go on those projects. So we already have those boilerplate standard conditions available online. So from day one, people can anticipate those items that are likely to affect their project. Both, in effect, can be in a number of different ways. It can be financial, it can be timelines, it can be other regulatory agencies that they have to go to. And Jared and I are going to talk about that a little bit in the next couple slides.
So this is an example of a recent pre-application that we had. It's for the property at the northwest corner of Avalon and Highway 62, 29 Palms Highway. It's a Circle K gas station, as you can see down here. So we review the plans. We see, okay, they have diesel fuel right here. They've got gas pumps right here. There's a drive-through. So we kind of do a preliminary review of their project like we would for a conditional use permit or something similar. And then...
Jared, go back to the site plan for just a minute. This one even becomes a little bit more complex. Why don't you highlight, this site is actually designed for semis, tractor trailers. Why don't you highlight that, highlight the electric vehicle charging stations, also highlight what staff has to look at and your planning commission has to look at. This is a commercial site, lots of vehicle trips that abuts a single-family residential neighborhood. So why don't you walk through a little bit more detail?
Sure. So you'll see in the comment letter, so as Shane mentioned, there's a single-family neighborhood over here, and then you can't see, but up in the northeast of the project is multifamily residential, but primarily single-family residences. So because this project potentially generates traffic, noise, odors, the whole nine, there's special conditions that we have to inform the applicant, potential issues with their site. So for instance, where we would tell them there's going to be screening along here to prevent these residences from having to admire a gas station all day. So things of that nature. Same with up here. And then you could see they have a mid-block driveway right here. That was another potential issue that we brought up to them, because if you're familiar with this, this area, the distance between this street and this street is very short. So if you had cars coming up Avalon, turning left on Paxton, and then turning left into the driveway, it's potentially creating a traffic queuing issue, as traffic will have to stop westbound to let this car turn left. So these are kind of the sorts of issues, in addition to parking count, making sure the drive-through is long enough to have cars queue, that sort of thing. These are kind of special additional analysis that we provide the applicant so that they understand what could be required of them when they apply for this permit. So this is another thing that they submit. Getting the elevations can be helpful because it'll help us identify any architectural design issues. In this case, there's nothing problematic here, but sometimes we will get hit with some neon colors or a completely blacked out building, et cetera. So this is an example of the information that we provide the applicant. So as you can see, we summarize how we understand their project. And this is not only for us to explain that this is how our comments are based, but also so if they have any issues, they say, wait a second, the site's not 6 acres, it's actually 5 acres. They can kind of enter some dialogue. So as you can see at the bottom, we talk about if the project's consistent with our regulations, the general plan and zoning regulations. And then we warned them about CEQA, as I discussed earlier, and the Joshua Tree issue, which, as I mentioned, will haunt our dreams forever. We go through potential studies that they'll need, traffic analysis, to make sure their driveways are safe and they're not needing a signal or stop sign, air quality to make sure those residences aren't going to be breathing gas fumes, noise, make sure when you slam the car door to go get a Red Bull that the baby across the street's not going to wake up. And then all-important biological assessment, make sure that those beautiful Joshua trees are going to be safe. And then below that is kind of just our, these are the improvements that your project may trigger, highway widening, bike lanes, infrastructure improvements, sidewalks, those sorts of things. So none of this stuff should shock the developer, or at least they're shocked in the pre-app and not their use permit. This is more of the same. Make sure they underground their utilities. We tell them to contact agencies that might affect their project, like in this case, they have power poles running across the site. So they need to contact Edison and discuss those poles and whether they need to be relocated. The site is in a fault zone. So we warn them that there will be a fault investigation. They might need to dig some holes and go poke around the dirt, make sure everything's safe. And just general standards, drive aisles, maximum building height. Make sure you build it to the current building code, which is one of the most commented ones that we do. People try and build it to an old building code. And then we kind of end it with, you should talk to these people before you get too deep, which is Fish and Wildlife is the big one. The Air District for any air permits, especially for a gas station, environmental health for food services, weights and measures for the gas, et cetera.
Just to summarize on this, so this is a pre-application. They walk in the door, they're just asking for feedback. And there's no specific set of plans they have to walk in. We always tell folks, the more detail you provide us, the better we can respond to you. But let's just talk about when staff goes through and detail this information out, what it means to the individual. I'm going to talk about a couple of those items. Number one is the Joshua tree. The site has a number of Joshua trees on it. That's an incidental take permit through Fish and Wildlife. That's probably in the neighborhood of 1.5 years before they have approval. The site is encumbered by what's referred to as an Alquist-Priolo earthquake fault hazard zone. That requires them to actually trench on the site, hire a geologist to go down into the trench, write a report. That report then goes to the county geologist for review in terms of where they can build on the site. The site is encumbered with 2 different sets of Southern California Edison power lines. Number one, the high voltage power lines, and then a lesser set. Those high voltage power lines and those poles likely have to be relocated to the tune of around $250,000 per pole. Kitty corner to this site, as you know, is the Walmart Home Depot site. That site was encumbered with another protected species called the burrowing owl. And so part of the biological assessment is other species, not just the western Joshua tree. So staff's role is to advise individuals coming through the process. Oh, I left out another biggie, sorry. It's Caltrans. They have to widen the highway, and you have to take those improvement plans through Caltrans. That's a very long process, not just the Caltrans review, but for the design engineer to prepare those plans. So from day one, in terms of the town helping people through the process. We advise them of these things that they're going to have to go through, who they need to talk to, and what they're going to have to take into consideration of their site. Many of the regulations that impact their project are not town regulations. From the Joshua Tree to the earthquake fault zone to the Caltrans right-of-way to the Southern California Edison facilities to permits that are required from the Air District and County Environmental Health, many multiple agencies involved in a project. And what I asked staff to do in this letter was basically advise them, if you start today, you're likely 2 years away from turning dirt on this project. And that's our role. Our role is to identify the constraints that they're going, one of many roles that we have, identify those constraints that they're going to run into, help provide them that information and that guidance so that hopefully they have a successful project. Jared, if you want to continue on.
All right, so in addition to pre-apps, we also deal, well, to be honest, Evan primarily deals with these higher volume permits. So short-term rentals, as you heard, we see a lot of those. Sign permits, home occupation permits, which is home businesses. Temporary use permits, most commonly those are like temporary construction trailers, things of that nature. And special event permits, if someone needs to close down a street to have a parade or something similar, those are what the special event permits are. And those are all planning applications or planning permits. So what we're seeing in the year ahead, I'm sure we've all heard about the Western Joshua Tree coming regulations anticipated in the summer of this year sometime. Hopefully having something a little more solid for knowing how to regulate those from Fish and Wildlife. And those create significant constraints for commercial industrial projects and subdivisions. They do not kind of have the more streamlined permitting process that single-family homes do. And they get caught up in the CEQA process to potentially remove Joshua trees. There's potentially a 20-unit hotel project coming up near the intersection of Buena Vista and 247, just to the southeast of that intersection. Small boutique type of project. Rehabilitation of the former Travelodge Hotel. That's currently underway with some small renovation right now, and they have some plans to make it better and make it, refresh it. And then continuing short-term vacation rental permits. And we've kind of talked about those, but as we approach the cap that was established, just dealing with those type of applications. So I'm going to go through a few upcoming commercial projects that we have in the pipeline. High Desert Times, it's adjacent to the Welcome Center on the south side of the highway. It's an approximate 1,200 square foot retail store, magazine store, vintage magazine store. This is currently in process. We're reviewing it right now. They're making revisions to it. You could see up here is the highway, and then the shop is here with parking behind it, and then open space behind that. It's a pretty small store, but they have highway widening concerns to plan for. So they do have some constraints and some potential issues that they're working through right now, but that is a coming project. The Star Cafe, which should be on the next Planning Commission agenda. It's at the southwest corner of 29 Palms Highway and Elk Trail, the former Diamond Automotive. They plan to make it, so you got these two structures. It's going to be like a grab-and-go food, coffee shop. There's a bar right here. And then they're also going to have some retail display. You can see they also have outdoor seating with some landscaping. And the punchline is right here is where those organics are going to go. So, Nice Dreams Ice Cream Store, same developer or same applicant as the last project that we just looked at, the Star Cafe. So this is basically across the street from the High Desert Times project. So this is on the north side of the highway across the street. It was formerly Strata Tattoo. So this is their shop. They have proposed parking back here. They have alleyway back here that they're trying to redesign the parking to accommodate so that people aren't backing into the alley right here. And then they're blessed with a Joshua tree right here. So they have some site constraints to make sure this stays safe and sound. And then they have the flood channel that you could probably imagine right here, right next to the project site. And this is also completely in the flood zone as well, this project. So they have a few constraints, but they're working through it, and hopefully we'll be going to Planning Commission in not too long from now. This is the building elevations for the ice cream store. Their fingers are crossed that they can do a mural in the future for this dog. And then we have a brand new application for a second Starbucks at the former Burger King site at the West Stater Brothers. We're currently calling it Starbucks West to go Stater Brothers West. It's in that northwest corner of the shopping center. There's an existing pad there, right next to Desert Nest. So this is kind of their proposed layout. Aki Sushi and those shops are down here. Desert Nest is over here. So you could see they have a little bit of a site design issue with their driveway queue backing into the main drive aisle for the shopping center. But we'll work with them to figure out what we're going to do. But they just applied a couple weeks ago with this one, so it's a nice, fresh, new project. Building elevations, you can kind of give idea of what's potentially going to look like once constructed. Chipotle, which is definitely going to the next Planning Commission meeting on the 14th. It's on the south end of the Vaughn Center parking lot, outer parking lots east of US Bank. It's kind of hard to see, but they're gonna have a drive-through pickup window. As far as I know, no menu board. It's gonna be order on the app and just drive through and pick it up. So you don't actually order in this drive-through, it's only for order pickup. Parking spaces, Vaughn's, if you can imagine, is up this direction. They have similar site design issues with the highway is eventually going to come close to their doorstep. Hopefully there will be a little 15-foot buffer right here, but they have to plan for the highway widening as part of their site design to make sure when the highway is widened that their drive-through does not become the number 3 lane. Quick Quack, which is nearly through the plan check process. It's been, all their land use permits been issued. They're very close to breaking ground. This is in the Stater Brothers East parking lot. If you'll remember, there was a formerly proposed Habit Burger next to the Pizza Hut Wingstop. That's now going to be this drive-through car wash. So queuing lanes, vacuum stalls. So they're very close to getting through the building permit process. Jersey Mike's and Domino's, which is right next to Quick Quack, also in Stater Brothers outer parking lot. They have building plans submitted. They're also going through that building plan check process. So they're also hopefully near breaking ground on that as well. This is elevation, so Jersey Mike's, Domino's will be the end caps, and then 2 other, hopefully restaurants in between them. The site plan, Stater Brothers is up here, Quick Quack will be over here, and then the GameStop, Verizon, et cetera, is over on this corner. So just to reiterate, things coming up this year, the legislation, or hopefully in July is what I heard they might adopt it. What constraints those create for the new development, and then more and more short-term rentals until we hit that magical cap number. And we can answer questions or try to answer questions after public comment.
Well, thank you very much for that presentation. A lot of interesting facts in there about our community. And as you clearly stated, a lot of it isn't just the town, it's actually state requirements that we have to make sure that they're mitigated and followed. Are there any questions from the community on this item? Anyone online?
We have one person, 2 people.
Oh, yes, please. Step up to the podium, please, so we can all.
What would one do if a Joshua tree dies and falls on their property?
So I guess I can
Understand?
refer that
I'm
to
asking-
staff. We deal with that a little bit.
The wind knocked over some Joshua trees in my neighborhood, and they're not quite sure what to do with them. They didn't try to remove them. They just fell over. Is that something you can't answer?
Well, no, we can discuss it. It's just not really the agenda item. That'd be more in our public comments, which will be
Okay.
after this item, once we finish
Okay.
this up.
Thank you.
So we'll address that then. All right, thank you. And so no one else here in the audience, but 2 in the online?
Yes, we have 2 people online requesting public comment. Casey K, you have 3 minutes. I have requested to unmute.
Hello, Casey.
Hi, it's Casey. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you. Go ahead.
Great. I appreciate it. Thanks. Hey, I just had a question about the adoption program as it applies to commercial properties. I saw it in the current charter. It's section 9.9.50. Can you talk about that?
We're okay to respond? We can respond to this item, okay. So we had an adoption program prior to the state regulations restricting local input on the Joshua Tree. So we can no longer manage an adoption program because currently only the state can issue permits for Joshua trees to remove, transplant, trim, put it on someone else's property, et cetera. That is completely in Fish and Wildlife's hands, and they're limited on what they can do about that. So currently, that adoption program is on hold.
Casey, did that answer your question?
Oops, I'm back on. Actually, I'm referring to any desert plants, so like choyas or yuccas. Is there an adoption program for those?
No, if an individual wishes to adopt, they should monitor land development activities and make contact directly with the property owner or the developer for those situations.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you for your call. Next, please.
Second person we have to make a public comment is Dr. Deborah Sabat. You have been requested to unmute. You have 3 minutes.
Hello, Jared. This is Deborah. I'm just wondering, because a lot of this is confusing to me, if you could explain, if it doesn't take too long, a little bit about the CEQA process, like what's involved in it. I'd like to hear a little bit more about that when a building goes to be built here and they're removing plants. What does that process involve? If you wouldn't mind explaining that for a minute or 2. Thank you.
Sure. In my past life, I worked at a CEQA consulting firm, so unfortunately I know a little bit about this. So basically, The state considers certain land use activities to be what they call a project under CEQA. Generally speaking, those are development projects, commercial projects, industrial projects. In some cases, it includes planning activities. For instance, our general plan gets reviewed for potential environmental impacts. So basically, when someone applies to build a project, we, us or our consultant reviews whether it is subject to CEQA. If it's a larger commercial or industrial project, it oftentimes is. If it's got protected species on the project site, it oftentimes is subject to, or does not qualify for an exemption. So basically, as part of the project approval, we, or our consultant or the applicant, has to demonstrate whether a series of environmental resources will be impacted by the construction and operation of a project. So if we're taking, let's say, a gas station, we have to ensure that potential toxic air contaminants coming off of the gas station are not going to negatively impact nearby residences, and if they are, that project will have to implement what they call mitigation measures to make sure that those impacts are either eliminated or reduced as far as they can. And that applies to biological resources. I think you had mentioned protected plants and animals. Yeah, during project construction or operation, there will oftentimes be what they call mitigation measures, either reducing or eliminating environmental impacts that might be created by the project. Traffic, yeah, traffic would be one of those resource areas. Traffic, air, greenhouse gas, biological resources, cultural resources, utilities, et cetera.
Deborah, did that answer your, excuse me, Deborah, did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you for the call. Anyone else? Okay, we'll bring it back to council for any comments, questions. Go ahead, Jeff.
I just want to say thank you for the detailed presentation. It's nice to have that. Everybody wants to know what's going on, and a lot of people want to know how things are built and the process you have to go through. I just heard, well, this is going back to Jessica, but a lot of conversation today on social media about the recyclables and the new trash laws. But anyway, it's good that you gave such a great presentation, so thank you.
All right, Mayor Pro Tem.
Very impressed with the presentation. Nice job for this is the first go. I did a great job. It's nice to see that you have a sense of humor, even though it sounds like you're inundated with a tremendous amount of work over the past year. And look forward to seeing things happen. It sounds like the town's in for a lot of nice development that we can use up here, restaurants and more convenience for not having to travel so far to get to places that we want to go. So, sounds good. Thank you very much for your presentation.
Councilmember Abel.
Yes, thank you also for that annual report and presentation. Very informative. Solar permitting, right? I didn't see it on the list, but I'm sure that's gone up quite a bit, so that takes a lot of your time to do that. I know that you are very good at returning or getting permits back to people and so forth. I know the solar company even is slower than, your permits are ready to go right away, and they're not used to that. And I know a particular person that had to call their solar person and say, hey, the permit's been done for 2 days, you guys need to pick it up and be able to do it. And their schedule gets to where they're further behind, so the project gets delayed not on your behalf, but because of the solar or the other contractors. So I've always been impressed on the turnaround with the number of things that you have to do and the small staff we have. You guys do a fantastic job. Also, when you look at that list, it also just reminded me of how many things and decisions and conversations you have week to week, day to day, month by month, and how few people come back to, like a council member, complaining about their process and not understanding. And, we get a couple of phone calls from somebody saying, what's going on? I don't understand this. but just to see the sheer volume, it's impressive that I only get maybe 1 or 2 phone calls every month or two, you know? So a great job in that, explaining to people at the counter, being patient. I know I came in several times with wanting to make sure I do everything by the book because I'm a council member, plus that's the right thing to do. And I ask really naive questions, but just to make sure I'm doing it the right way, and you guys are always very patient with me, so I appreciate that. The other thing is I just really didn't realize when you showed me that Circle K, that's just one project. Do we charge a fee for that preliminary process? Because that takes a lot of time to be able to give them that feedback.
Yeah, it's a pretty good deal. It's I believe we only charge $5.35 for that application, so they get quite a bit of review time for their money.
Yeah, and never knowing that it's ever going to continue, they may be discouraged or say this doesn't pencil out. But I'm glad you do charge some kind of a fee because that's a whole lot of heavy lifting for those people. A lot of not free information, but a lot of good, valuable information. So then they can go back and maybe do some site plan changes before they invest even more money to try to mitigate some of the costs or the environmental impact. So very, very impressed. I didn't realize so many steps went through the process for me just to get a slushie at Circle K. And I'm surprised they only charge what they charge after I see all the amount of money they have to invest.
Yeah, ideas.
But that would be great if that did go through on that end of town and so forth. And like you said, it looks like they're banking on the future with the EV charging stations and so forth. And I don't know if the state of California is going to subsidize some of that infrastructure because the governor's wanting everyone to go to the electric car. So hopefully they can get some funds to help offset some of the cost of putting that kind of infrastructure in. Well, thank you. Great job.
Yeah, thank you for that. It was a lot of volume. It was nice to highlight the volume that you process in there. And as you said, in 2020, you were there by yourself, and since that time, we brought on additional staff. And I know everyone there is still very consumed with responses to the public. I have a couple things I wanted to ask about. One is in the native plant pipeline. Do you see anything else affecting our community possibly as far as being listed or taking a higher level of mitigating?
So far, I think that's the primary thing, is the Joshua Tree. There has been some things that they have streamlined to try and make things easier, traffic impacts, things of that nature. So I think as far as environmental impacts that or CEQA impacts, it's the Joshua Tree that's our big concern.
Okay, well, thank you, because I look at a lot of things here, you know, consuming more of staff time to properly address the items. And the other one was, we talked a little bit, or you highlighted some short-term vacation rental application processing. You did list home occupation permits. Is that something that we have a lot of in our community?
It's not a ton. We get them every few months, but there are a handful of home occupation permits. I would guess we get one or two a quarter.
Okay, so very light overall.
And the reason that number is so light is the town made revisions to the HOP regulations several years ago, whereby if you are just emailing, phone calls, you're not attracting any customers to the home. Let's say you're a contractor, you're a subcontractor, but no customers are coming there, no transactions occur at the site, but you operate out of your home, that's exempt. We don't even require a home occupation permit. So those regulations were revised, they were streamlined. So you literally have hundreds of home-based businesses in this community, but they don't require a permit.
Great, well, that makes it
I was going to say, that's
someone.
a good point. We probably, as far as exempt calls, I would guess a couple a week for home occupations. So most are exempt.
And then the last one, it looked like it was somewhat of a theme on these new projects that we're talking about and encroachments into the highway and mitigating those with Caltrans. It looks like that 15-foot buffer is kind of a standard we have now that you're looking to put in. And that's a pretty good distance, and that's nice. Keeps the area safe. So just wondering if that was a standard that we have. That's all I have. We're good. Thank you very much. I appreciate it, Jared and Evan, for your work. And this is a receive and file? Yep. So great. We'll look for the next update. So that covers it for today. Right now, we'll bring it back to the council for any future agenda items. None? Okay, we don't have anything. And this will bring us up to public comment. The town council takes the time to consider your comments on items of concern which are not on the agenda. When you are called to speak, please state your name, community of residence, and please limit your comments to 3 minutes or less. Inappropriate behavior which disrupts, disturbs, or otherwise impedes the orderly conduct of the meeting will result in forfeiture of your public comment privileges. The town council is prohibited by state law from taking action or discussing items not printed on the agenda. So did you still want to speak on an item that you brought up earlier?
Actually, I have another one.
Okay, that's fine. This is your opportunity.
I'm here on behalf of my 10-year-old granddaughter. She plays soccer, and she's having to take 2 and 3 bottles of water with her for soccer practice, and she's wondering why there's no water fountain at Glen Park.
There is one
I-
inside the
What we need to
building.
do to get one.
Okay. Well, I appreciate that comment. That's very important.
I'll help out as much as possible. If we need a fundraiser, we can do that.
Would you please leave your name and contact information, if you would, with the clerk, and staff can follow up?
But that's it.
Okay, well, thank you for taking the time.
I'm glad she's involved. That's great.
Mary Becher, by the way. I didn't tell you my name.
All right, so now we'll take it
We
back
have-
to, oh, we have someone else?
We
Online.
we have one person requesting public comment online. Deborah Sabret, I request you to unmute. You have 3 minutes.
Yes, Deborah, go ahead.
Hello again. Yes, you said you no longer had the adoption program, but I was wondering if this town council would be willing to maybe form a new committee in reference to maybe running an adoption program so it wouldn't, burden on anyone else. Maybe form a new advisory committee or what have you. I think you might have a public advisory committee already, but I'm not 100% sure. But a committee that addresses adoption for, obviously not for Joshua trees because you can't, but for all the other protected plant species. Because first of all, if there's a way to let the public know, then more public people may want to pick up those plants. And also just educating the new developers who are, scraping the land and what have you to, could put out signs and notify people of the adoptions like you used to have. And training the new people that move in, maybe some kind of brochure or flyer on how to plant or work with the indigenous plants that are already here and not plant non-indigenous plants, because it throws the balance of our water off in nature. So I was wondering, to me, it sounds like a fabulous idea. I'm sure there would be people in our local community, I'd probably be one of them, that would love to volunteer to help with that program. And I think it would be a wonderful thing for the town council in this town to do. And thank you so much.
Thank you for taking the time and your comments. Anyone else online? All right, with that, we'll bring it back to council, or actually to staff for reports.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll start with Captain. You have anything this evening, Captain Work?
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. I invite you and any members of the public, especially kids or grandkids, to come out and join us and the Boys and Girls Club this Thursday. The Sheriff's Department and the Boys and Girls Club are co-hosting a Cookie with a Cop event at the Boys and Girls Club here in Yucca Valley. This is not just exclusive for those who typically participate at the Boys and Girls Club, but any members of the community. Anybody who has kids or grandkids that want to climb in and out of a patrol car, meet a deputy sheriff, or if you just like cookies. I understand there might be some basketball involved, but we're always looking for ways to go out and meet with the community. As you know, we've done Coffee with a Cop quite a few times, and we don't typically get our youngsters in there. So we're doing it from 4 to 6, so we're hitting those after-school hours. Again, it's this Thursday on March the 9th, and everyone is invited to attend.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. Alex or Sue, you have anything today?
Sorry, a couple of updates and a couple of projects that we're having. For the Little League pedestrian improvement project, the project is going very well. It's expected to be completed by the end of this month. So we have the contractor back right now, and They're scheduled concrete and asphalt for the next 2 weeks, and that project will be wrapped. So, which is good. The Onaga pedestrian improvement project, we continue to encounter problems, but we handle them as we go. So the project is going at this point of time. We're still working with the Frontier so we can look at some of these power poles away from the right-of-way. They showed up to the site yesterday, but they were like gonna be lowering the poles where it is right now, and we told them that's not acceptable. We need these poles out of the right-of-way. So they said that is have to go back to engineering, get back some design, and come back. So they promised within 4 days to get a design, and then come back next week, remove these, relocate these poles so we can have our straight sidewalk, not a meandering sidewalk. For the Prop 68 Yucca Valley Recreation Center, we conducted an interview today to select a construction manager for the project, and we will be making a decision hopefully next week on who will be, and hopefully we'll come to the council with a contract, hopefully next meeting on the 21st. For the Rule 28 undergrounding, we received plans. We had some comments in the plans, so we had our comments. We're sending it to Edison, so hopefully they'll finalize our comments and then, start with the project, so before the aquatic center starts. The Essig Duck Park, we did listen to what you guys said. We're trying to accommodate as much as we can with the budget that we have. So we have a plan that came in. We have discussed it. The designer is putting the final touches to it. So in the next meeting, you will have authorization to start the bidding on that project. So that is going on very well. For the town hall parking, which is a big concern, so we received the plans and we submitted them for you guys to review them one more time and give us comment. But one of the items that was in the consent calendar today that you approved is authorization to apply for a Clean California grant that can give us up to $5 million to deliver this project. This is along with the project that we are doing is the Little League, the Tri-Valley Little League modernization, and also the project that we have is the improvement to 62, the landscape improvement to 62. So we're going to be applying for these 3 projects. The consultant are on board. So now that we have approved, they will start on the work on these grants. Hopefully we get all of them, knock on wood. That will conclude my report.
I wanted to share with the council that the Youth Commission is in action. They have completed 3 sessions of Teen Tech Time for seniors at the Senior Center in February. They're also hosting a celebration of our seniors this Saturday, March 11th, starting at 6 o'clock in this room. And that's free to our seniors 55 and older. And we encourage their families to come along with them. Under 55 is $5 per person, with live entertainment by the Hot Rod DeVilles, complimentary light refreshments and dessert, and that's presented by the Youth Commission this coming Saturday. They also are planning a Teen Splash Day for later in the spring, so they've just been really, really busy. We also are continuing to accept registration for our rescheduled Healthy Hearts Run at the end of March. Our basketball season has wrapped up the regular season and is headed to all-star tournaments. And our spring-summer guide will be distributed in the community in mid-March.
Mayor and Council, just 2 items this evening. Number 1, Planning Commission next Tuesday. You heard tonight the Star Cafe, which is the former Diamond Automotive in Old Town, and the Chipotle restaurant project. Both of those will be on the Planning Commission agenda. In regards to the question asked this evening about what can you do or who can give us approval to remove a dead and fallen Joshua tree from our property. Town actually had that conversation with Fish and Wildlife staff this week. As you know from the rainstorms and the wind, there's a number of western Joshua trees that have fallen down. Some have fallen out into the town's maintained road system. There is no permit or approval process available today for the removal of a dead western Joshua tree. It does not exist. You cannot even apply for what's referred to as an incidental take permit, or ITP, because there is no primary activity. So there is no legal permit available for anyone to remove a tree. We informed the Fish and Wildlife staff that we have significant traffic safety issues, pedestrian safety issues, and that we would be removing the western Joshua trees from our public right-of-way, and we are going to continue to do that. I believe we've already had 3 of those this week. So in response to the question that was asked tonight, there is no permit. Now, in the proposed legislation, the budget trailer bill, as the council is aware, it would, if passed, it does essentially reinstate the state's ability to issue permits for removal of dead or trees that are leaning against your house or potentially causing damage to a structure. Gives the state the ability to issue permits back in that situation, but we don't know when those regulations are going to be adopted. So that's the information from the state this week. And that concludes my comments this evening.
Thank you, Shane. Council, just 2 comments. One is a follow-up to Alex's comment on our Yucca Valley Aquatics and Rec Center. We had the opportunity to review the material boards. There's, I think, 4 or 5 of them. Those boards indicate the specific materials that are going to be used, specific colors that are going to be used on the center. We thought it'd be very helpful, not only for the council, but for the community to have an opportunity to review these. Our current plan is to put them up at your next council meeting in a workshop setting, so we'll probably do that at 5 or 5:30. We'll put them up here on the wall so you can see, touch, feel exactly what's going to be going into the Yucca Valley Aquatics and Rec Center. Super, super neat, exciting project. When you start to see the color palettes that are being used and the types of material, it's really, really amazing and exciting. And then just lastly, last week we had the opportunity to meet with the Desert Regional Tourism Agency and their annual dinner that they put on for their California Welcome Center volunteers. It's a whole army of folks there that help out day in and day out and address many of the visitors that come into our area. So exciting time to recognize them for what they do and to thank them. So it was a fun evening.
Well, thank you very much for that. We had a lot of information tonight on projects moving forward and potential projects, for developments in our area. So with that, we'll go ahead and bring it back to the council, and we're going to go ahead and start off with Councilmember Abel.
All right, thank you. I wanted to welcome Yolanda as a full-time team member. I love, Shane, that you used the word team member. Reminds me of when I was working in the amusement park industry. It wasn't employees or customers, but the wordsmithing was team members and guests. And it really helps clarify who we are and what we're about. So it is really a team effort, and I appreciate the wordsmithing because it adds clarity to what we're all about. I had the privilege to be at a appreciation dinner from the California Welcome Center in DARTA, where they recognized original DARTA members who helped get the Desert Regional Agency going and so forth, and also recognizing a whole lot of volunteers. I didn't realize how many volunteers work at that Welcome Center, and some of them were recognized for 12 years of volunteering, and it was amazing to see that. So it was a real privilege to be able to see that. I also appreciated that their focus had been on tourism, but now it's sort of shifted to where it's more of their focus is educating people to how they can enjoy the desert, but yet be very aware of the fragile desert ecosystems that we have. So come up, enjoy our area. This is how you do it, but also remember to very tread lightly, noise, lights, all those things cause disturbance to not only the residents, but also to the animals and plant life. So I was really, really inspired that our regional tourism board is really pivoting and helping us manage those 3 million people that come down our highways to go to the national park, and really educating them on the ecosystems and how to enjoy the desert in a smart and responsible way. So it was a real privilege to be there and to help show our appreciation for all the volunteers that make the Welcome Center just phenomenal. Other than that, it's been a great week. I'm glad to see the weather's changed. It's amazing how much work goes into restoring our roads. I saw the street sweepers out there still putting things back together. And I know a lot of people have received property damage from roofs being torn off and trees going down and fences being blown over. And I'm just thankful that not that I know of, that we had any loss of life during those last couple storms. I also appreciate the delay on the Healthy Hearts run. It'd be nice to have a healthy heart, but having frostbite at the same time, sort of counterproductive. Although if I would have participated, probably would have cut down on the number of participants. I might have had a better chance to score up high in the top 3 or something. But I am looking forward to running, and my whole family is going to be participating in the Healthy Hearts coming up on the 25th, I believe. So thank you for that. I know you had to pivot, but I appreciate all the efforts that our Recreation Department does as well. Thank you.
Well, thanks for that, Councilmember Droz.
If you recall, I guess it was 2 weeks ago, I mentioned I had about a dozen, suggestions, complaints, whatever you might call them, from constituents in the town, and I sent that off to Curtis. And I'd like to thank Curtis and all the employees that work on that stuff, because everything's been taken care of, or there's an answer for everything that has happened. So to go along with tonight's theme, I think it's like the town is on top of complaints also. And I think that's a wonderful thing. And it makes it easier for us as council members when the town actually acts on items like that, and the employees. And we had a lot of great presentations tonight. I just want to thank everyone. It's amazing how many activities Sue has all the time. Alex, thank you, Alex. You're always like on top of stuff. And Jessica, especially with the trash stuff. That's complicated. So, and the captain, thank you so much. All right, have a great week.
All right, Councilmember Schooler.
Well, I appreciate hearing about the projects. Always like to hear about those. So thank you, Alex, and thank you, planning staff. I'm glad after 30 years they finally let you guys out to tell us about this stuff. But thank you. That was a great report and enlightening. So appreciate hearing about those. Looking forward to all those happening. And thanks to Wanda for coming out. Welcome to Yolanda. And that's all I got. Thanks.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Welcome, Yolanda, to the team, full-time now. It looks like you're going to be really busy. The planning department's full of stuff going on. And thank you for the presentation. It's really nice to see our town growing in a healthy and new way, with all these different things, projects being built, and the drawings look wonderful. I hope it builds out the same, and I'm sure they'll be useful. Always like the idea of more restaurants. Now that I'm more or less retired, eating becomes one of my main habits, and I really enjoy that. So new restaurants are always good. Let's see what else is happening. Fun time at the Pelicans Club last night. Here in the community, met a lot of interesting people from all sorts of places in the community. Yucca Valley has a very unique place in our community, in our valley here. It seems to be very friendly, and we get a lot of things accomplished, and it's kind of neat to see the synergy of the different areas, Morongo Valley and Joshua Tree and 29 Palms, and out there in Landers and Wonder Valley, all coming together and just getting along together. We're all different kinds of people, and we're all just getting what we need to get done to keep our community safe and informed, and a really wonderful place to be. So thanks, everyone. I've been a little under the weather, missed a couple meetings. I might miss a few more, but things are good, and I hope to see you at some of the future things.
Oh, thank you. And just, I want to bring up, first say welcome to Yolanda, from someone that was a temporary employee when we needed more help, and to be able to see her now become a full-time employee with us is wonderful. I mean, we always need extra help, especially in our community development area. So I appreciate her stepping up and becoming part of the team. We hear a lot from parks, road facilities. We've gotten annual reports for the last few years. The first few times that the teams got up there, they were always embarrassed to talk about all the work they do. But I very much appreciate you, Jared and Evan, for coming here tonight and giving a presentation. It's such a broad thing that you do there, and the volume of production that happens out of there for the community is huge. Impressive. So thank you for stepping up, and I would look forward to just getting in that mix in the future to have, we've had the facilities and roads and parks, and now, of course, just planning in there is a big piece of our community. I'm super excited. I've seen some of the preliminary drawings for Essex Park. I've been driving by Little League, Onaga, seeing the obstacles that you've had on Onaga that has held up the project. You can see that. But all these projects are huge. Well, for our community, they're huge. I think they're fantastic, and they all kind of revolve around safety and more enjoyment. And that's really one of the things that we've put on our mission, and I'm glad to see that. Wanda out here speaking again about Grub Stakes Days. It's almost strange that it's been a year already, and it's approaching fast. So I'm glad that she's there to lead always with the community, and some of the comments that she made about the new members to the Chamber of Commerce. With that, I don't have anything else, and I would like to say that we have one more comment about our next upcoming meeting. The next regular meeting, the Yucca Valley Town Council, will be held, as always, on Tuesday. It'll be March 21st, as was mentioned a few times, 6 p.m. right here in the Yucca Valley Community Room. And with that, this meeting is adjourned.